Hey everybody, Kaitlyn's here for the Q&A. You all asked some really good questions, so let's get into it. Hey everybody, I just wanted to come on here and preface this by saying this is probably going to be either a 3 or a 4-part series. There was a lot of questions and a lot of response, so I will let you know in every subsequent video how long it's going to be. I'm hoping to do it in 3, but it may be 4. So let's get into this. So Kaitlyn made a video saying that she would do a Q&A, and you all asked some pretty good questions. And Kaitlyn is here to answer those questions. So here's Kaitlyn. I'll let her introduce herself.
I'm Kaitlyn. I'm her daughter, obviously. I think I've introduced myself a little bit before, but I'm 27. I had my transplant when I was 22, so it's been 5 years. I hit 5 years in March. So that's actually a pretty big milestone too for lung transplants. They said most people will go through rejection in the first 5 years. And if you make it 5 years, it's kind of not really smooth sailing, but smooth sailing after that.
Your chances of survival go up.
Yeah.
After 5 years. You guys, like I said, asked some really good questions. So we are going to answer some questions, or she is. If I need to fill in things, I will. But okay, here's the first one. This is from Jessica Vasquez. Hey Kaitlyn, I just wanted to say how inspiring your story has been to me. My son, who is 9 and has been in the sick so much, is in his life. Always in the hospital and just miserable. We recently found out he has a blood disorder, G6PD, and he also failed 2 sweat tests for CF. We see the CF specialist this month. I bawled my eyes out just because the unknown for me is so scary. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Well, I hope you start getting answers and everything starts going better. I know that all that stuff's tough. I spent a lot of my childhood in the hospital, and it is tough. I know Mom, she would spend the whole time with me. We'd be in there for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. We'd come in. I think once I hit teenage years is when it got worse for me. That's when I started going 2 to 3 weeks in the hospital. I'd be home 2 or 3 weeks, and I'd be going right back in the hospital. And it is tough. It really is. So my prayers are to you guys.
Hi Kaitlyn, love watching your mom's video about your transplant. Such a blessing. When did you first find out you had cystic fibrosis, and what do you have to do to manage CF before and after the transplant?
That was from
Radiance Rush.
I was diagnosed at 13 months old. I was pretty young, but also I should have been diagnosed a lot earlier.
At birth.
I don't know much of that part of the story because I was a baby, so she'll have to answer that part.
Well, when she was born, before she was born, I had a suspicion. When she was born with a bowel obstruction, which didn't resolve itself for 2 or 3 days. And she just kept progressing and kept progressing. When she was 11 months old, she got croup and just couldn't get over it. So I asked them to send her for the sweat test. And they did, and he come back positive, and she was 13 months old.
Didn't they say, like, in the test I had produced so much salt and
well, before we even left Children's Hospital, they said, let me go see if I've got enough sweat, because that's what they do. Is the test is they put kind of electrodes on their arm, and it stimulates the sweat glands, and they take that sweat, they wrap it up, they take that sweat, and they measure it. Well, before we even left, he said, oh, yes, I've got plenty of sweat. So he knew before. And it says, what do you do to manage your CF before and after?
Before, I was on a lot of medications and treatments. And so I was born in 1997, and back then, there wasn't as much as there was like today. So as I got older, more things kept coming, so I got on more and more and more regimens. I would take enzymes to help digest my food. I would take it with every meal, every snack, every time I ate anything. I had to do breathing treatments. I had to do the breathing treatment part. Most of them were twice a day, so I would wake up early for school. I'd take my treatments, and at bedtime. Some of them were 3 or 4 times a day, especially the vest. I was supposed to wear it 3 to 4 times a day. Now, I didn't ever do it every single time, 3 or 4 times a day, because you're going to school, you got other things, you fit it in when you could. But
explain what the vest is.
the vest, you wear it, and it looks just like a vest, like a sport vest or something. My mom could put a picture right here.
It's like almost like a life jacket vest.
Yeah, so you wear it, and it hooks these hoses to it, and it sends air to, and it shakes you. So it shakes all that mucus loose, and you can cough it out and get rid of it so you don't get lung infections.
That was for 30 minutes twice a day.
Yeah, and then I was on a lot of medications. I had to do a lot of different vitamins because where I couldn't absorb nutrients, I had to have a lot of supplements like vitamin A, D, E, and K. I was on those disgusting Aquadex and stuff. I was on a lot of vitamin D. Even to this day, I'm on a lot of vitamin D, and it's just now getting to where it's kind of stable. The treatments was the most part. Like, I did my pills twice a day, except for the enzymes. I would have to do them every meal. And then it was like a whole handful, I think.
Like 16 different meds.
Yeah, it was a lot. And then added on, once you put all, like, I had to take 5 enzymes for a meal and like 3 enzymes for a snack. So adding all those in there too, I was taking like 30-something pills a day. It was a lot. And I would take them in applesauce when I was little. But once I could swallow pills, I stopped that. And I still kind of can't eat applesauce to this day because I had to eat it so much growing up. When I was little, from the time I was like maybe a year old to I was getting into my teenage years, I wouldn't really get sick and get put in the hospital. It was more of they would schedule tune-ups. So like twice a year I'd go in, they'd do a bronchoscopy, clean out my lungs, and I'd be in the hospital for 2 weeks to get IV antibiotics to make sure they would keep everything clear and everything going. Once I hit 10, 11 years old, that's when I started getting infections a lot, and I would go to the hospital every few months. And as I kept getting older, it was just less and less time between those tune-ups that I would get bronchoscopies and antibiotics because I would just get so sick, and my oxygen sats and stuff, they would just get so low because I had so much buildup in my lungs. I have to go in on oxygen. It was gross. But after transplant though, it is like a whole new world. I don't have to take near as much pills. You would think I would take more, but I don't. I take my anti-rejection meds now and a few like little vitamins I still have issues with. And then like some other, just like I have migraines really bad, so I'll take something for that. And then like acid reflux, because I still have acid reflux.
Blood pressure.
And so I did develop blood pressure issues after the transplant. So I'm on blood pressure medicines now. But the amount of pills is like maybe a fourth. Like I take 5 or 6 in the morning and then like 8 at night. And that's about it. And the enzymes, I don't know what I don't know, because I have been gaining weight and sustaining myself since then, so I've not really been taking them. But if I do know I'm having a really like fatty meal, I guess I will take some, kind of help me out, because I know it was just destroying me if not.
Which is weird because your transplant didn't affect your digestive system.
No, but I think what it was is my body's not working as hard to just breathe and live. It's kind of chill that I can actually gain my weight now, and I can actually absorb better than I was back then. Over 3,000 calories if I wanted to gain weight. Now I don't eat that much anymore. I mean, I could.
I mean, can you imagine struggling to breathe? As hard as, a CF patient has to breathe. And you're expending so much energy just to breathe. Well, you need calories. Well, she was burning off those calories. So before she had her transplant, she actually had to gain how much?
I weighed in the 80s when I got evaluated, and they wanted me to be like 115, 120. And I think I hit 117 when I got my transplant. They put in a feeding tube for that. I did do all night long feedings. I had that as a kid. They took it out because I hated it and it was giving me too much issues. And I went from the time I was When did I get it taken out?
12. Remember, it was going to Disney.
Yeah, I was 12 when they took it out. And then I was 21 when they put it back in. So it wasn't that long without one.
80s kind of gal. All right. Hi, Kaitlyn. You're a remarkable young lady and such a beautiful testimony. My question is, did you have a favorite scripture or scriptures that helped you along your journey and recovery?
That is a good question. I don't really know. Like, every now and then I would like read a little bit and people would talk to me. But that kind of stuff, when I was younger especially, it didn't make as much sense to me because the way the wordage was and everything. But my papa's a preacher, my uncle's a preacher, and there was always lots of prayer involved. I always knew God was with me because I know I would not be here today if it wasn't for him. And so I really just more leaned on him instead. I would pray to him a lot and just tell him to give me the courage I need to get through the stuff.
Well, when she was first diagnosed, the church that we were going to at the time had a special service for her. And they had a prayer service and an anointing service over her. Amy, 2234. Amy is the sweetest. She's always so encouraging. So this is what Amy said. Kaitlyn, I just want to say how touched I was by your story. May God bless you and watch over you, and may your life be filled with love, joy, and laughter. Amy is the sweetest. So thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Donna DeGuire. Kaitlyn, your story is amazing. God is truly great. How important is having your mommy there with you during your transplant? Have you had any breathing problems since the transplant? You're so brave.
Through the whole thing, I needed my mom. Like, especially as a kid, I needed her. I couldn't do nothing. Actually, it's funny, when I was a kid, I loved the nurses that were taking care of me, but they weren't not my mom. So I had a portacath. And when I'd go in for IVs, I'd be like, no, I think I want my mom to access my port. I don't want anybody else touching me. Because I know my mom could do it, and I knew she knew how to do it. Like, I didn't doubt the nurses, but as a kid, it was just more comforting. Once I got older, I really didn't care, but I still needed her. She would stay with me through the whole thing. And then when it got to the transplant, legally, I guess, I had to have her. They said I had to have two caregivers, and they were my mom and my younger brother. He came with me as well to help take care. So when she needed a break, he could come in. But I will say, without mom in the transplant, I don't know what I would have done. Like, I was so dependent on somebody else to help me. Like, just getting up, to stand up, just sitting up, anything. She had to do more than she ever dreamed of to help me out. And I could not have done it without her at all.
Before her transplant, while we were in Durham, we'd have to go to the hospital for the clinic, and in the parking garage they would have wheelchairs, and she'd be strapped to her oxygen tank, and I'd have to go get a wheelchair and wheel her into the hospital because she couldn't make it. Like I said, when you're a mom, it's not a job. It's a privilege, and that's what I looked at it as. It was a privilege. But like she said, she had to have two caregivers. And one was a backup in case one of us got sick. So it was, if she didn't have caregivers, she couldn't have had a transplant because she couldn't do. I mean, I would have to, when she had her transplant, she was in such pain that I would have to actually pick her up sometimes out of bed and set her on her feet.
Yeah. Have I had any breathing problems? I still get sick. I still get allergies. So, like, right now, I don't know if y'all can tell, I'm a little icky and hoarse and stuff because I don't know what's going on with the weather outside. It's ridiculous.
It's East Tennessee.
Yeah. So right now, I've got a little, not really breathing problems, but I'm very, but I had COVID last year, and it took my lung functions before my transplant, right before, was 17%. After transplant, they said it rose up 500%. I think it was almost 100, like 98, 99. And then last year when I got COVID, it went back down to the 40s. I'm back now, good as I was, but during that time, it sucked.
When she got COVID, she was sick. I mean, stuff like that really, really throws her for a loop.
Yeah, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, came home and still did 2 weeks of IVs. It was terrible.
Karen Lines, my question would be, how in the world did you have so much strength to get through your double lung transplant? I find you an incredible young woman. My second question is, have you ever thought of trying to contact the family of your donor that passed and you got his lungs? Do you think it would give them healing to be able to hear his lungs working in you? If you feel strange to answer, it's okay. I hope these get to your mom.
What was the first part of that again?
How did you find the strength?
Oh, sorry. Since transplant, they told me this would happen. I have terrible memory. So you tell me something, I have to, I don't know. I'm sorry. So you might have to repeat things to me a couple times. But I never really saw it as strength. I saw it as something I had to do. There was no other choice. I mean, transplant or stop living. So I never saw it as I was a strong person or nothing. I just was like, well, I just gotta do it. Okay, another thing to do. Another test, I guess I could call it. But it was the most nerve-wracking thing I ever had to go through. Everyone said I was not a very emotional person growing up. I would not cry. I would not anything like that. No. But when we had to move to Durham, I broke down and cried a lot. Every time, I would get a dry run, which is when they call you and say, hey, we may have a set of lungs for you. We want you to go ahead and get to the hospital so we can get you ready in case they're good. A couple hours later, they'd call and say they're not good. Something was wrong with them, or I don't really know the circumstance, but it was a no-go. I had 2 of those, and those really broke me down. My mom has a picture of me standing there in front of the hospital just...
Her brother's consoling her. And her brother's the same as she was. He's not an emotional person either. And I'll put this in here too.
Yeah. But it was really tough. So, but like I said, I've told my mom, I've told everybody this. I never saw it. And I also never saw myself not coming out of it either. I was never scared, I guess you could say. I knew God was with me, and I just saw it as another thing, okay, I gotta get this surgery done so I can go ahead and get it over with and go back home and I can keep doing what I need to do. So I guess God really had a big hand in that.
Well, when she was 5 years old, she walked up to me. Well, we've told her for the very first, when she was old enough. She asked me, she said, Mom, am I going to die? And I thought, how am I going to answer this? I said, well, Kaitlyn, we're all going to die. You've got this condition that, it's hard. And if you don't take care of yourself, that's going to be a bad thing. But there's no reason why, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, be very, very diligent in what you're doing, that you shouldn't be able to have a long life. When she was diagnosed, the life expectancy was around 19.
Yeah, so my 20th birthday was a big deal to me.
But now it's the 40s, 50s?
I think they said now if you're born this year, the life expectancy is in the 60s. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. But yeah, I remember growing up, they always kept saying, life expectancy is probably 19, 20 years old. And I hate to say it, but a lot of people I knew growing up, they were a little bit older than me, they 20s. That was it.
She's lost four or five friends to this that she got acquainted with when she was in the hospital. Now,
I've known of more.
Yeah.
That I just wasn't as close with.
There was a guy that went through the transplant program with her, and he was on his second lung transplant. He didn't make it. He lived a little while, but he didn't make it.
Yeah. And contacting my donor. So when I had my transplant, it was 2019. It was March. And they said that you have to make it a whole year before you can consider contacting your donor. I guess in case something happened and, you know, they don't want that person to know.
And tell them the process of doing that.
So when the year mark hits, you're allowed to write a letter to the donor's family, and they will contact the donor's family and ask if they want to hear from you or get involved. And whether they accept or decline, you can give them their letter, and then they'll give you their contact and all that stuff. Well, my 1 year mark hit COVID, March 2020, okay? That shut everything down. Nothing. And it lasted for years, and I could barely even get an appointment just to go to the doctor, and everything worked smoothly. I had to stay hiding all the time at the house and stuff because I didn't want to get COVID. So I never got to that point where I could really sit down and think, like, do I really want to contact my donor? And part of me does. I want to know who they were, and like, so I can thank them and let them know that I'm able to live a much greater life now. But also part of me, and this is really selfish of me to say, is if I find out, I think it becomes too real for me. Like, that I have somebody else's organs in my body. So I'm on the fence. I'm still debating on what I want to do.
Our survivor video. Kaitlyn, do you have a good, high-value man in your life? Would you want to have a man who would take care of you?
That's really funny. But
Answer the second part first. Do you want a man to take care of you?
No. I've been taking care of myself way too long. Now, part of me is sitting there like, oh yeah, it'd be nice to never have to go to work and just live happily, enjoying my new life. But no, I can't. I would get too bored. I couldn't just sit around not doing anything, have someone take care of me all the time.
She's too independent.
Yeah, but I have. So before, I used to meet a lot of crappy guys that took advantage of girls that were sick. But after my transplant, it was a little over 3 years ago. This guy walked into where I was working at Tractor Supply. He wanted to buy the car that I had, which was a 240 SX, if anybody knows what that is. And he was wanting to buy it. And once he found out it was my car and we talked a little bit, he wanted my number. So I gave it to him. We went on some dates, and now it's been almost 4 years later, and I love that man to death.
His name is Steven. We love Steven.
Yes. And he, I don't know, he is a germaphobe. So it's kind of funny because I'm not a germaphobe, and I should be. Like, I've had a transplant. I have no immune system. I should be scared to death. But I'm not. I will say it. I've been living my whole life running around barefooted, playing in the dirt. I don't care.
It is. I was very, very, very protective of Kaitlyn. The reason that's what I say is I felt it was my place to take care of her. I didn't ask for help. I didn't ask for anybody to come in and help me. I did it by myself. And when Steven came into the picture, I've been able to hand those reins over to Steven. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some things, he gets a little antsy about, and he'll question, but he takes great care of her.
Yeah, he's a germaphobe, and it's a good thing because I think the Lord said, you need to calm down and not be just eating food off the floor or something. I don't know. I don't really do that. But so he's always super protective of me. He always makes sure that if we're going somewhere and nobody's there is going to be sick, he asks, he does all that. He protects me. He won't let me touch doors. He won't, anything that he would think of like that, he will not let me do. And the first sign of me getting, like me sounding like this, he's been freaking out. He thinks I need to go to the doctor. And I mean, if it keeps up, I will. But he immediately jumps on everything. And if something needs to be taken care of, he will stop everything he's doing to make sure that I'm taken care of. I was in a wreck 2 years ago now.
It was when you graduated.
Yeah, I graduated. It's 2 days before I graduated college. Someone T-boned me. I called him, and he works 35 minutes from where I was. He was there in 15 minutes to make sure that I was okay. And he was panicking, making sure everything was good, worried that something had happened with my incision and I have wires that hold my chest together where they had to go through my sternum. So that's the kind of stuff like he freaks out about, and he always makes sure I'm taken care of. I get what I need. There's been times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have the money. And this was like when we first started dating. I'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't have the money to afford the medicine that I need right now, which can be a couple $100s sometimes. And he would immediately, no thought, make sure that I got that medicine. And I love him to death. He's really like the best person out there.
But, and to be fair, Stephen wasn't around before her transplant. He didn't know how bad she was. So he doesn't have anything to compare it to. Like now when she gets a sniffle, you know, to him that's just, oh my gosh. But to us, it's just like,
yeah,
we actually forget she's got CF.
Yeah, I have to remind him a lot. I'm like, I still can get allergies. Like, we still live in East Tennessee. And my CF still leaves me with terrible sinuses. My sinuses suck. As you can tell right now, I sound like I don't know what. But, so, if I start sniffling or anything, sound like this, he's immediately like, I need to go to the doctor. So I have to remind him a lot that it's still okay. But I still kind of have a CF and things will happen.
Okay, here's Radiance Rush. Looking forward to the Q&A. What an absolute blessing and miracle she is. I hope and pray she lives many, many, many more years and they find a cure for CF. Such a devastating illness.
It is. It really is. And back then, before they really knew what CF was, they would call it the kiss of death because you would kiss your baby and they would burn you because they were so salty.
That was her.
The salt that they would produce, and they knew that once they tasted that baby was not going to live.
Well, when she was born, she had all these issues. And I had lost a first cousin to cystic fibrosis. She made it to be 19 months old. And she would be my age, and I'm 56. So this was back in the late 60s, early 70s. And my mom was around and knew what to look for. And we were discussing Kaitlyn, and she come up to her, and she kissed her and kind of, you know, stuck her tongue to her. And she's like, yeah, I think she needs to be checked. When you would kiss her, it would burn your lips. It would actually burn your lips, the salt would. She would wake up with salt crystals on her face. So, that is the end of part 1. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sitting here in bed editing, so that's why I look like this. But I hope you enjoyed this first part. Like I said, I'm going to do 2 or 3 more and see where this goes. So, stay tuned for the next couple ones. And I hope you like, you subscribe, you hit that notification button, and you share this video. I would love for her story to get out and reach more people. So, stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.